G'day, Sean here, and good news. The ARRI Camera Companion App is now available in the Apple App Store. There's a lot to unpack, so let's get into it. All right, first up, a huge thank you to everyone who downloaded and tested the beta version of the Camera Companion app. We now literally have thousands of people who are using the app every time they go into set, and it's cool to see how it's become an indispensable part of so many different people's workflows. When you go to the App Store and download the app for the first time now, you'll notice that it looks fairly familiar, and you will be able to import your custom layouts from the beta version into the full version of the app now that it is available. Now that we've launched the app properly, we're moving to a subscription model. But don't worry, there will still be a free of charge version of the app, which is called the demo version. That won't have any subscription attached to it, and it will still offer you camera control possibilities, as well as a custom user button and access to the full menu of the camera so that you can control all of the functions. The standard subscription for the Camera Companion app will be €5 per month, and that gives you access to the full customization abilities of the app, as well as controlling 2 cameras simultaneously. If you're interested in controlling more cameras, well, we have the premium version of the app as well, where you can control nearly an infinite amount of cameras simultaneously, as well as access MIDI control so that you can map physical buttons and knobs to controls within the app, and you'll have access to controlling C-force lens motors through the app as well. Just a couple of facts before we get started into the detail. The Camera Companion app will be available for iOS devices like the iPhone and the iPads, lots of different versions of iPads, as well as for Macs with Apple Silicon. And it's with the Mac side of things that we're really going to see that customization possibilities with all of the MIDI control stuff, which I'm excited to talk about, as you can probably tell. Now, the app will work with the Alexa 35, the Alexa 35 Live, the Alexa Mini LF, the Alexa Mini, the AMIRA, and the Alexa 265. Let's get into the detail. Now, one of the handy things about having an iPhone in my pocket is that I always have access to the Camera Companion app. And here you can see what it looks like in the free of charge demo version of the app. I've just downloaded this from the App Store, and I can immediately connect to a camera and start using it. In this case, I have a Wi-Fi connection from this phone directly to the camera, but I could also connect to a larger Wi-Fi network where both the phone and the camera are talking on one network. From here, you can see that I'm immediately presented with a whole heap of information about what the camera is doing. Most of these tiles are there as read-only tiles to give me status information, but I can also interact with some. So for example, I could go click on the exposure index tile and then change the EI value of the camera. I can also interact with the user button. So here I can toggle on and off the viewfinder false color, and I can change what that button does, either by changing the behavior of user button 1 on the camera, or I could open the web remote, which gives me access to the camera menu so that I could go into user buttons, change my camera user button if I wanted to. I also have access to the home screen of the camera. Basically anything you can do with the viewfinder, I can also do with that web remote. Now, there are a bunch of other features that I can do with the demo version of the app. For example, I could trigger the camera to record. This tile is locked, so I long press on the record button and then I can tap it to hear the camera start rolling. To lock that button again so that I don't accidentally tap it, I can do a long press. And you'll also notice that there is a little padlock symbol that comes up in the corner of the tile. And you might find other tiles that have a similar behavior. The calibrate lens motors button would be one of them, because that's not something that you accidentally want to press usually. So it's a long press to unlock. The other symbol that you'll see on the tiles is this little indicator to say that these tiles are read only. So to gain access to not just using them as status overview tiles, but to interact with them and change the settings, I have to upgrade to either the standard or the premium subscription, which I can do by touching on the menu icon and going up to the shopping cart here. Now, I'm using the iPhone in this instance to run the demo version, but remember that even though I'm about to change to an iPad, all versions of the app work on all devices. All right, let's look at the standard version. This is the standard version of the app, which we think is the version that most of our users will use most of the time. And the first big change is that there are a lot more tiles that I can now interact with. In the free demo version, they just act as status indicators to tell you what the camera is doing. But now, for example, with my recording resolution tile, I can click on that and I have a nice new way to adjust the sensor mode, the codec, and the recording resolution of the camera. So for example, I could choose Apple ProRes 422HQ, and then now it will only show me sensor modes that I can record in ProRes. I can then choose on, say, a sensor mode, and it will give me just the 2 recording resolution options for that, which is quite a bit neater than how we have it set up in the camera because we have a larger display and a touch interface. Another cool example is maybe looks. So if I go into the look list here, well, I can select between the 2 looks that I have loaded on my camera. So for example, I can switch over to my cool look, but I can also go to the library and I can choose from any of the look library looks that are installed in this camera, and I can even search too. So I can go for a cross-processed look, for example. Let's go back to default. Now, the second big change is that I can customize the layout. So if I hit the little pen icon up here, I can say, fill this little hole I conveniently have with a user button. So I'm just scrolling through all the tiles, which are the options for what I can put into this layout here. And I'm going to go and I'm going to pick an app user button. Now, there are 2 different user button options. App user buttons only pertain to the Camera Companion app, and I can have as many of those as I like. Whereas the camera user button, well, that relates to the physical button on the camera itself. So if you've set up your camera user buttons and you want to have exactly the same user button layout on your app, you can, but then you're limited to the number of buttons that the camera physically has. Whereas I'm going to grab an app user button and then slide it over here to that little space that's left. Now, if I tap on that twice and go into button function, you'll see that I have heaps of options for functions that I can set to that app user button. I can have as many as I like, so actually I could create an independent button for each and every one of these features on a different layout if I wanted to. For now, let's, for a good example, choose ND increase. I could, of course, set a separate ND decrease button if I like, and if I change over to camera C up here, well, it will show you how responsive it is. It's almost instantaneous in terms of the functionality of the companion app. Now, I changed cameras, and that's also something that you can do with the standard version of the app. So I can control 2 cameras at the same time. This tile up here is the camera switcher, and it will show you all of the cameras that you have available. And with the standard version, you get control of 2 at the same time. So I can very quickly change to my A camera, which is just here, and to my C camera, which is directly above me. And of course, the layout would be the same. But I can also have a different layout and see both cameras at the same time. So to show you that, I can quickly go into this little layout section. I can go to load layout, and I've made this one called vertical split, which goes like this. And now I could click onto this guy, clone the layout. I can clone it to the right. Maybe I'll move it over slightly so I have a bit of a gap here. You can see the scroll limit in these dotted lines around the outside of the frame. And then I'm just going to change this one to be camera A, although I probably should have done this the other way around, but you get the idea. So now I have camera A and camera C available to me for control at all times. Now, there is a lot more in the standard version of the app, and if you're interested, you can go and watch the tech talk that we released for the beta version, as it covers most of the functionality, but we will be working on releasing a new tech talk that's fully up to date within the next few months. But of course, that's not all, because the premium version offers some really cool functionality, so let's get into that right now. The third option for the Camera Companion app is the premium version, which we've designed primarily for DITs, but we know that there are loads of camera assistants out there as well who will love to experiment with physical control inputs, say for camera user buttons, but more on that in just a second. The feature I want to start with is that you can control C-force lens motors with the premium version of the app. So in this instance, we're looking at C camera again, which is the camera above me, and I have my assistant over there running focus and zoom on a high 5, but iris is now listed as being idle. So it's kind of in encoder mode. It basically doesn't have a handset connected to it, which means that I can now tap on the iris value and change the stop. Now, you can also use the wheel here, but this is in no way meant to replace any of the ARRI ECS devices, which offer you, much lower latency and much more finesse when you're controlling things like an iris pull, but it does work. So to show you how the MIDI setup works, let me just get my laptop. All right, now we've got all of the cool toys to play with, but let me just start by talking about how I set up the app. As you can see, I'm running the premium version of the Camera Companion app on my Mac. And I've got 4 cameras here, so I have a layout for each one of the A, B, C, and D cameras that we have here in the studio. That's something that's unique to the premium version of the app. I can have actually an almost unlimited number of cameras that can all be controlled at the same time with the premium version. Another little feature that's available in the premium version is that I can use tabs. So I have this layout here with my 4 cameras, but I also have tabs at the top where I've made a slightly larger layout for just the A cam and then the B cam, and I can configure this however I like. So I could have all sorts of different tiles and different layouts and different tabs. It's totally up to you. Let's go back to the multicam tab that I have here. You'll notice that there's one other thing that's a bit different, and that is that some of the tiles here are blue. And a blue tile means that it can be controlled or is set up to be controlled by an external MIDI device. If you look at the C camera, bottom left, you'll see that there are 3 of those. And if I press this button here, well, it will change the ND value of the camera above me. Now, I also have a white balance that's a blue tile, and that's because not only can you use buttons, but you can use knobs as well. And I've set this knob to be able to control the tint value of the white balance. So I can scroll right through the tint range here, and that's quite a nice little tactile feeling where it's one click of the knob here corresponds to 1/10 of a CC value. There's a whole bunch of other stuff I can do with MIDI, and we're really excited to see the kind of customization options that you guys I know have actually already been playing with. But one thing I wanted to highlight is because this is such a flexible protocol, all I have is really a signal coming from this device into the Camera Companion app, and then I can get the Camera Companion app to treat that toggle as any one of a number of different functions. So for example, if I press this EI button here, you'll notice that I've actually set it so that that button press will go up and down for exposure index changes on all 4 cameras at once. So that's something you can only currently do with MIDI controllers, is have one button controlling multiple cameras at the same time. We would really love to know what kind of MIDI controllers you guys are going to be using on set. We've already had a bunch of feedback for some really cool DITs, and thank you to everyone who has sent their feedback. But if you have a specific device that you would like to use with the Camera Companion app, please get in touch with us. Here's the email address, so that we can create some kind of default layouts that work plug and play almost with your devices and the Camera Companion app, just to make the setup a little bit easier. All right. Let's have a look at some more detail for those subscriptions. Right now in the App Store, you can download the ARRI Camera Companion app for your iPhone, your iPad, or your Mac with Apple Silicon. And when you open the app for the first time, you'll be greeted with the free of charge demo version, with which you get access to the camera menu and some basic camera control features and one customizable camera user button. So if you only occasionally even use an Alexa camera, I think it's worth downloading and having ready to go, because you never know when you need a camera remote. Now, within the app, that's where you can activate one of 2 subscriptions. The standard subscription costs €4.99 per month, or whatever the equivalent value is in your local currency. And for that, you get access to a completely customizable user interface with an infinite number of customizable user buttons and control of up to 2 cameras simultaneously. You can also subscribe for a year, and the cost of that is equivalent to buying 10 months of subscription in a row. The premium version of the app is also available to subscribe through the app, and that will cost €39 per month. And for that, you get access to multiple camera controls, so basically a nearly infinite number of cameras that you can control simultaneously, as well as access to controlling C-force lens motors and that really powerful MIDI feature set that I showed before, as well as access to multiple tabs for multiple layouts at the same time. You can, of course, also subscribe to the premium version for a year, which would be the equivalent cost of subscribing for 10 months. Now, before we wrap this up, I just wanted to add a quick thanks to both LS Digi for their iPad cages and to Upgrade Innovations for their fantastic mounting arms. And I'd like to leave you with a little reminder, and that is to say that the MIDI functionality is extremely powerful. And don't forget, there's a whole world of MIDI devices out there that you can now use to control ARRI cameras thanks to the MIDI integration in the Camera Companion app. And I'm super excited to see all the crazy things you come up with. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.